Welcome back to FiddleUP. My name is Emerald Ray, and today we're going to work on the chop. So this is a technique that's grown out of bluegrass and sort of taken on its own life and become its own existence in the fiddle community. It's not quite as popular in Celtic music, although people would disagree. There are certainly whole workshop series and camps based on this. There are people who do chopping, as accompaniment. It's like a whole wing of the fiddle world for sure. But it's definitely comes from the bluegrass world for sure. It was designed to mimic the chop of the mandolin. So it kind of grew very naturally out of, the mandolin would chop when somebody was taking a solo, and when the mandolin took a solo, that chop suddenly went away. And at some point, the fiddle players realized, oh, if I just do a little chop there, then that'll fill in that space. And then they kind of went, oh, that's fun. We should do a little bit more of that. And of course, it's been, there are, lots of really amazing choppers out there. Darrell Langer, Casey Dreesen, Rashad Eggleston made a whole DVD about it years ago and sort of came out and said, okay, we have a very specific chop technique that we do, and this is how you do it, and blah, 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 blah. I learned how to chop before then. I actually learned from Natalie Haas when we were at Fiddle Camp one time. I just said, will you show me that chop thing that you're doing? That's really cool. I've never seen that before. And so the way that I do my chopping is a little bit different. Most people that you see doing it will chop out like this, and that is the Darrell, Casey, Rashad way of teaching it, where you change your bow hold and everything goes like this, and you actually adopt a bit of a cello bow hold, which makes sense if you're learning how to do it from, it sounded best on the cello, back in the days when we were trying to figure out how this all worked. So there are two different, they teach this whole technique of going out like this. I really don't love that. I have always stuck to using my regular bow hold and going in. So I refer to myself as an innie and everybody else as an outie. So just so you know, I chop a little bit differently than most people do, because at a certain point there became an official way to do this, and I missed that train or didn't want to get on that train. So I use my regular bow hold, which if you go back to the beginner series, I show you how I do my bow hold. And, for those of you who know about bow holds, you can see what's going on here. I do keep my thumb bent and pressed right up against the hair. I find that stabilizes my whole hand, and it's great for chopping. So I have a really nice, just rounded pinky, everything's sort of where it's, kind of standard, sort of pseudo-classical bow hold here. It's not super classical, but it's kind of your standard bow hold here. And what I do is I chop in towards the bridge, and that's what gives me that sound is coming down towards the, towards where the strings are the tightest. And so I learned from Natalie, who is chopping towards her bridge. So when I was learning this, I figured that was what made the sound to do that. So, that's just how I've been doing it for a long time. I find it's much easier for me to switch back and forth from doing rhythms to chopping very easily, but everybody's different. If you want to try somebody else's chopping bow hold and do their whole thing, feel free to do that. I would always encourage people to experiment with what you're doing. So long story short, that's a long explanation for the ins and outs of the chop world. So we'll learn the in way, and that is all you're going to do is you're going to bring your hair right, bring your strings right to the hair right at the bottom of the bow. You have to get really dangerously close to the frog. In fact, the metal part is gonna hit your strings a little bit, and that's okay. It's part of the learning process. It's not pretty, but just try not to break a string. So what the chop is just it's just a tiny little millimeter of that grittiness at the bottom of your bow. And really go way too hard. Really getting into the grit of the string in an extreme way. So all it is that tiny little thing. So technique-wise, what's going to happen is your fingers are going to come up and then come straight down. So I'm kind of coming straight down and in towards my bridge, If you want to do the out way, you would go out that way. You know, some kind of direction is going to happen naturally with your hand depending on where it's facing. Mine's going to go in because that's where it naturally goes. But the direction of the bow is actually going to go ceiling to floor, very weirdly. At least that's what it feels like. So that's what gives you that gravity coming down, is it's coming straight down. It's not going out, right? You know, you've been training your whole life to play. To not go up and down and to do this, and I'm messing everything up for you. I'm so sorry. So yeah, you're going straight up to the ceiling and straight down to the floor and getting into that extreme crunch zone. So try this a couple times so you get the movement, but don't stay up there. It's not this. It's a really small movement. It's this. Okay. So it took me about a year to get that originally. So if this takes you a long time, be patient. I'm sure it'll take you longer than a year, or shorter than a year, because I didn't have all that info when I started. I was just literally hacking away at my fiddle back in the old days. So I'm sure you'll be fine. So if you've got the chop down, if you haven't got it yet, don't worry, just keep working on it. And once you've got the chop, then here's what you do. You want to get into pulling a chord. So we'll do this, you know, totally open G and D strings on the bottom, and then chop. So you're just going to pull you're going to get into that grit zone again, and do kind of kind of a really hard, really raspy chord where you grab the strings and then lift off really quickly. And then chop. And then you're going to come up. So there's an upstroke as well, which kind of happens naturally. You can damp your strings here if you're getting too much open string action. There you go. So you get the upstroke, and then you've got that raspy chord, and then chop, chord, chop, chord, chop. So there you go. So that's what it sounds like on open strings. If you had a chord, then you can actually catch a little bit of the chord on that upstroke. So that was just a G, D, B on the A string, and a G on the top. So I have a nice open G chord here. But I don't want you to focus on the chords right now, just focus on the chop. So after you've got that, I'll damp my two top strings, actually. That's a good idea. There we go. Then we don't have to worry about any harmonic action on the top. So let's try that again, but we're going to do two chords this time. So chord, chord, chop, up. Chord, chord, chop, up. Chord, chord, chop, up. Chord, chord, chop, up. So a little faster, that sounds like. You can really get into some fun stuff. So you could do 4 strokes and make it more of a bow stroke than those raspy ones. Those raspy kind of staccato-y ones. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, chop up, 4 chord. 2, 3, 4, chop up, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, chop up, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there you go. There's an intro to chopping, and I will be adding some more stuff on what to do with that, but that's a good place to start for now. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video.